Hello, I'm MrTieDye. Welcome to my channel. So today I'm doing Halloween designs. So what we have next here is a ghost. So what I'm starting with is a t-shirt that's been soaked in soda ash. It's been spun out so it's barely damp. And then I centered it so I have just the front of the t-shirt pulled forward. So what I'm going to do, and I drew my little spooky ghost on there. So what I'm going to do is tie this up. I'm going to start with the eyes and the mouth first, and the eye is easiest if you just kind of fold that in half, and I'm going to do a little slip knot and have that ready and waiting for me when I'm finished folding this. So I'm just going to do little tiny accordion folds. When you're doing little things like the eyeballs or something, then the accordion folds get much smaller. Normally I do like a ½ inch or so, but when I'm doing something that small, I'm doing maybe a ¼ inch, just so that I can do a few of the folds in there. And then just wrap this kite string around there, right where I drew my line, wrap it around a couple times, and then I tie it off. Okay, and now the mouth down here. We're going to do the same thing, a little slip knot. And then we're just going to fold that little tiny mouth in there. Okay, and now we'll just fold around the rest of the outline here. And we'll just do this all in one big run here. And since I have so many turns and stuff on this ghost here, I'm not getting it lined up perfectly straight on top. So what I'll do is draw these same curved lines on the bottom. And that way I can dye along these same curved lines here. Trying to line them up and make them perfectly straight, sometimes that can just be almost impossible to do when you have several lines that corners that you're going around. And the sharper the corner, the harder it is to get around it and keep everything straight. So when you have a bunch of them, then it just makes it even more difficult. So rather than trying to spend so much time getting everything straight, I just make sure that I draw this same curved line on the back side, or the bottom side. Oop, almost buckled that right up on myself. Okay, and once again, since this here is a long run here, I'm not going to tie just one line right on the line. I'm going to tie probably an inch either side of this line here, just to give that some support. And the other thing you can do if it's a really long run that you've done is you can support it by tying or using rubber bands or whatever, but get some like chopsticks or popsicle sticks, something that you can lay in there and give you some additional support along those full lines there. But usually with the kite string, I can kind of support it on both sides, and as long as my accordion folds are tall enough, I can usually get it to stay pretty good. So, and I think that feels pretty good as long as I don't wrench on it too much when I'm doing something. That should stay in there pretty good. But if you need to put something else in, a stick of some sort, just to give it some support, that's a good thing. Like say, chopsticks work good for that, especially on really long runs. Okay, so now there's my ghost. I have my eyeball down here and my nose, or my mouth. So in the rest of this tee, I'm just going to scrunch it up. Whenever I have the sleeves tucked inside themselves, then I can kind of scrunch them up right in their own armhole here. And sometimes twisting them will take up some of the extra slack also, without creating a lot of bulk. So you can just kind of scrunch them a little bit and then just twist them right in their own armhole there, both of them together. Okay, so there's my ghost. So we'll be back soon with some dye and some gloves, and we'll get this dyed up. Thank you for watching. Hello, okay, I'm back with the ghost. So what I'm going to do to start with is dye the eyeball and the mouth on here, but I want to have a dry rag handy. After I dye these, I like to squeeze the excess dye out of there, but it's also pushing some of the dye inside. So I'll start with those first. Okay, so now I'll press on those just with my regular finger. My regular fingers. Yeah, I keep my special fingers someplace else. I'll just press on that with just my fingers, not with the rag to start with. And then I'm going to use the rag, which will help soak some of that excess dye out of there so that it doesn't run down into the ghost. So there's that, and now I'm going to outline my ghost. And I'm going to run a double line here of the thick black dye. And I'm going to flip this over, and I'm going to make sure that that eyeball is kind of poked out there so that it's not flopped over on something. And then I'm going to dye this same line. It's kind of crooked on the other side there. So that'll give me my nice ghost shape. And then just to make sure that the dye from the t-shirt doesn't get soaked up into here, I'm going to put some thickened water on this area. And it doesn't have to be thickened, you can use just regular water. But you need something to wet this part of the t-shirt down, because the dye will want to kind of equalize, or the liquid will want to equalize within the t-shirt. So if this part here is fairly dry and this part here is nice and wet from the dye, then it's all going to want to suck up this way here. So by putting this thickened water up here, then that cuts down the chance that I'm going to have dye spreading into my ghost area. So that's a little bit extra thick there. We're going to thin it out some. Okay. Yeah, that's better. So that's just a matter of equalizing the liquid content within the t-shirt to help cut down on the dye spreading, or the liquid spreading to other parts where you don't want it to. It's not 100%, but this here will definitely cut down on that. The other thing I'm going to do is leave a bigger gap between, let's see, we'll go with purple and green, I think. So I'm going to leave a bigger gap here where the dye can kind of spread on its own before I move down that way. And I'm just going to dye some of it purple and some of it green, and then I'm going to put black over top. So we'll have a nice Halloween-y color here. I'm going to touch up here. So I'm using my smaller bottle so I could put smaller amounts of dye on there. And we'll do the same thing on the other side. And I can see some of this purple dye has wanted to spread up that way, so that's good, because that lets some of the spreading happen before you are done dyeing the t-shirt. And now I'm going to put a coat of black over top of the whole thing. Okay, and I'm going to put some more thick water on my ghost just to make sure he's good and wet. And then I'm going to let this batch for 48 hours, and then I'll have the results at the end of the video.